Welcome to Dr. Akmal Makhdum's YouTube channel. He is a psychiatrist, author, and social commentator. Today is a general episode on question and answers, and today it is from some people within the Pakistani community. The question that has been put forward by one of the viewers is that he feels, or she feels, that there is a general feeling of apathy within Pakistani professionals in the West towards the socio-political issues confronting Pakistan. First of all, this is very generalized, and he's painting that every Pakistani professional has this feeling of apathy. Do you agree or disagree, and what would you like to add to it?
What I would say is that there are two aspects to this. If we break it down to apathy towards social issues of Pakistani community in the West, I would say that is true. In terms of engagement, in terms of engagement within British society.
Right.
But as far as the Pakistani community's fixation and interest in Pakistani politics and Pakistan back in Pakistan is concerned, that fixation, that obsession is extreme. So I think the viewer's question primarily deals with issues not of Pakistan per se, but the Pakistani community and professionals in the West having apathy towards issues Pakistani in the West. Or if that is not the question, that is how I would pose the question.
Right.
So I would like to bring that very general and broad question into this particular topic, that the Pakistani community or Pakistani professional community in the West is not engaging as it should with the British politics, with British society, and with British established ways of systems and British systemic influence that they can exercise and that they should exercise.
Okay, so how do we, so that was one element of it. But from my understanding is that he's also saying that there's a feeling of apathy about the way the West confronts the socio-political issues towards Pakistan.
I think that is primarily due to the Pakistani community in the West, because the Pakistani community in the West only takes interest in Pakistani politics and in Pakistani social issues. They do not know who's the Education Secretary of England. They do not know who's the Health Secretary of England. They do not know where are the discussions re-Brexit, what is going to be the impact on Pakistanis on Brexit. The only two things that they know, that what are the changes happening in the benefit system and what are the changes happening in the Home Office visa regulatory systems. These are our fixations. Now, what we'd like to, if you look at other communities, and I've mentioned that before, the Indian community or the Jewish community or the Israeli community, or for that matter, the Armenian community, the Chinese community. Why is it that the British approach to all these countries is different to the way they are dealing with Pakistan? Pakistani influence in England can be tremendous, huge. Pakistani influence can make and modify and format and reset some of the British policies if Pakistanis exercise that influence. But Pakistanis do not exercise that influence. We are nowhere to be seen in the political establishment.
Yeah.
And those who are in the political establishment do not have a sense of belonging to the Pakistani community, bar one or two. But those who have it then get shunted out.
Okay, well, that was the next question. Another viewer poses, what steps can be taken to develop collective community sense in the West to help the Pakistani society flourish?
I would say, first of all, stop watching Pakistani televisions in England.
As much?
I would say totally.
Okay.
Only if you have to. Only if you are mentally disordered to an extent that you have to.
Okay.
So what I would say is that stop having this umbilical cord still attached to Pakistan and to your villages while you're living in England, eating English bread and consuming English salt, as they say. So I would say that Pakistanis must start living in England, in Britain. I believe that the Scottish Pakistanis are doing it slightly better than the English Pakistanis. I believe that in the Midlands or maybe in Yorkshire, there is, by default of sheer numbers, there is a slightly better and bigger engagement. But in other parts of the country and in the mainstream of the country, we are still split in the Tory Labour liberal camp. So there is no collective sense of, or the cross-party Pakistani sense in which Pakistani community deals with issues. They will either vote Labour or Conservative. They will not unitedly vote on issues that are relevant to Pakistan. Because, I looked at it when I was more active in the medical politics of Britain, and I looked at the generic politics, and there were about 50 plus seats where Pakistani vote could have made a difference from this party to another party. And those were the years when the party majorities were very thin. But the problem was that because there was no sense of how to vote on issues and how to strategically vote and how to look at the strategic interests of Pakistan. And that is why. And this is unlike the other diaspora, the Israeli diaspora, the Jewish diaspora, the Indian diaspora, the Romanian diaspora, the Eastern European diaspora, the Bengali diaspora. Now, that is why I feel that it is very important that Pakistanis also start getting engaged mainstream, in the mainstream politics and mainstream themselves.
But, okay, my question is, I'm just going to add to this question because, this gentleman has asked what steps can be taken. You've given a few ideas to help develop a collective community sense. But does one need to completely cut ties with where they were born, where they've grown up, in order to, establish something productive within another country?
Well, you don't have to cut ties. Nobody's saying don't visit it once a year,
maybe some people would interpret what you said by cutting the umbilical cord and the...
Yeah, this is cutting the umbilical cord. You've moved away from there for a better life, for better education, for a better future. If you didn't want to cut the umbilical cord, you could easily go back, live there. Nobody's stopping you going back. But the thing is that should you not be looking at the future? Should we not be looking at how many Pakistani people, communities in our parts engage with the local council? Except, there is always a complaint that we have for the local council. How many volunteer for schools? How many volunteer in the hospitals? How many volunteer for charities? How many volunteer in the other activities that are going on? So what I'm suggesting is that there are these sub-councillor bits, the parish councils and so on. How many parish councils are we involved in? So this is what I'm suggesting, that where there are overwhelming numbers in a particular area where there are 80% Pakistani community, they would by default be present because that's where they are. So what is the percentage of Pakistani young men or women in the police force? How many are in civil services? Why is it only being doctors and engineers or doctors? Why? The 30 plus percent or 35% of the NHS consists of Asian and non-Caucasian doctors. But nothing like that in the police force, nothing like that in any other establishment. So when you are outside, you are only a professional. So when you are a doctor and you're a professional, you're asked to fix a particular problem. That's it. You're not part of the policy making. So when you are in the managerial and established bureaucracy, that's where you are policymaker.
Right. Again, that will help the collective community grow.
That'll help the collective community, because at this particular moment in time, you had a couple of people in the government who rose to particular positions, but when they're out,
Yeah.
their influence is completely out.
Okay.
So there is no organizational or community influence anywhere to be seen.
Okay, right. And the final question is, how can overseas Pakistanis help the communities of their origin in Pakistan for betterment of Pakistan and face the challenges of the 21st century?
Well, the thing is that I think there are
I think you've answered that previously.
220 million people in Pakistan, and there are 1.8 million Pakistanis in England.
Right.
I think that the British Pakistanis should focus on being British Pakistani and allow the 220 million Pakistanis to look after Pakistan.
Right.
So 1.8 million Pakistanis in Britain will not ever be able to do anything for Pakistan unless the 220 million people in Pakistan have committed to doing something positive for Pakistan.
Or what you do is within the country that you're living in, get to a position where you can start influencing.
Mine was the answer to his question.
Yeah.
How you can do what you can do from here to there. I would say you don't need to. Don't. You are doing a lot already. You're paying monthly, weekly, yearly, quarterly, and enough. Maybe you can do more in terms of sending money to your loved ones so they can have a better life because of the sheer difference in exchange rate. £1 touching 203 rupees. Now, fantastic, you must do that. And this is actually one of the largest and the most stable source of foreign exchange income for Pakistan.
Absolutely.
That I'm fully in favor of. And, we must all do that. But the idea that we must constantly become ailing, worried about Pakistan does not help. What helps is create your influence here. Stop stabbing your brother in the back when in England he or she or brother and sister who's growing up in positions. Stop jealousy and envy within. So, because we've seen that all the time in Pakistani community, that in any field, if the Pakistani starts to rise up, it's your own brethren who are stabbing that person in the back.
A2 Brutus.
Yeah, I mean, but the thing is that is a national character. Right. So what I would like to say is, and I'm not the first person who's saying it or experienced it. What I'm saying is that everybody says that. So this degree, the first thing is, get your priorities right and get your morality right. So stop your envy and jealousy. And what's your priority? Your priority is influence in England. Once you exercise influence in England, you can always help. I'll give you an example. When I was working, I had liaison with a local university. And we were able to offer training programs which could improve training in England at minuscule cost, which was required by the university. Now, what I'm suggesting is that...
So you're saying you brought people from Pakistan to come train in England?
Not necessarily. It was web-based.
Oh, excellent.
So the thing is that the university would start training people, live training via net. Amazing. And provide and also certify that training.
Right.
But the point is that this is something that we must try to do and carry on doing everywhere. And unless we do that, it's not going to work.
Okay, so that's it. So that's how you assist your communities back home, by getting influence here, then, for example, setting up certified training, and they can then improve the quality of their life there.
But if for that you need to engage and have influence in your locality.
Absolutely. Great. Thank you so much. If there are any further questions, do write to us and drop us an email. If you like this video, like, comment, and subscribe. We will see you very soon. Thank you so much.